Hello and welcome to the weekend market update. So in this video, we're going to look at QQQ and SPY. So you're looking at the daily chart of QQQ. So let's look at the structure and see, what the structure is telling us. So since the rally began, you can see that it's been putting in a series of daily higher lows. This is the last daily higher low. And at the moment, this sequence of higher lows is still intact. And in the process, it's been making higher high. So, the most recent one being that. Now, this week, we've received earnings from Tesla and Netflix. And obviously, the market reacted negatively following the earnings. So we have a drop on Thursday right here, QQQ gap down. And then there was follow through weakness on Friday. So next week we're going to get more earnings. So we've got earnings from Microsoft and Google next Tuesday, and then we've got Meta earnings on Wednesday. We have the FOMC also on Wednesday. So expect quite a bit of volatility next week as well. Now, as of today, at the end of this week, I'm not seeing any kind of break in the price structure despite the weakness following earnings releases from Tesla and Netflix. If I look at the moving averages, you can see that the price remains above the daily 20 EMA. You can see that it tested the daily 20 EMA several times. So it's just above the 20 EMA. The 20 EMA is around 372. QQQ closed at 375.63. So there's still 3 points above the daily 20 EMA. If you look at the momentum indicators, RSI remains above the 50 level. Since moving above this level, in fact, I would say, this is where it crossed above the daily, the 50 level, briefly dipped underneath this level. So if you ignore this one, it's been above this level from this is when. So this is around mid-March. And during that time, you can see positive price action. So if the if the uptrend is to continue, RSI definitely needs to stay above the daily 50. MACD remains above the zero line. So I'm not seeing any sort of weakness in either in the price action or the momentum indicators as of now. If I look at the weekly basis, so here's the weekly chart, you can see that very strong looking price action. So let me just zoom out a little bit. You can see that strong looking weekly higher lows. So technically you can say that this is the last higher low, and since then it's been just going straight up. The question is, is there an opportunity for a pullback? We'll talk about this. You look at this weekly candle. Obviously, this is not a bullish looking candle because it traded above the previous week's high and closed below the previous week's closing price. So this candle is not bullish, and you might say that there is an opportunity for additional weakness, and we're going to talk about that. If I look at the moving averages on a weekly basis, you can see that the price remains above the weekly 20 and 50 EMA, which are moving higher. You can see RSI is above the 50. You might say that yes, it's in overbought territory, but it's above the weekly 50 level. So that's positive. MACD is above the zero line. So there is nothing either on the price action or momentum indicators that suggests that anything weak about the technical picture of QQQ on a weekly basis. So let's talk about this weekly candle. So obviously this is a weak looking candle, and you might say that, hey, there's maybe follow through weakness coming. So if that's the case, using the weekly perspective, what are some of the levels we should be looking at? Remember, the weekly levels are different from daily levels. Weekly looks at more of a big picture. So from a weekly perspective, what are some of the levels we should be looking out for? All right, so from a weekly perspective, so the first level I would be looking at on a weekly basis is this level right here. So this level also brings us to, this previous high that it broke through. So this level is 364. So this would be an area of interest for me, because it broke through this level, and then it rose all the way up to this level. And having risen to this level, is not too far from an all-time high. So that would be the first level I would look at. Now, if this level is breached, and you take a measured move of this distance, that would project a target to this level, which is around 340. Now, you might say that's a deep pullback. Yes, it is a deep pullback. I'm not suggesting that it's going to fall to this level, but even if it were to pull back to this level, does that, even if it does pull back to this level, does that break the weekly structure? No. So low, higher low, higher low, and this would be another higher low. So if it does something like this, yes, this is a deep pullback. Even if it did happen, all it does is, on a weekly basis, it establishes a weekly higher low. Now, obviously, I'm not expecting it to go down to that level in 1 week. This would take several weeks if it did go to that level. But I'm just, keeping an eye on this potential level, is because I'm seeing a range right here. So this is a possibility. Another possibility is that it pulls back and touches the weekly 20 EMA. So it hasn't touched the weekly 20 EMA in a while. Now, the reason why I like the weekly 20 EMA is because if I just, if you look at QQQ after the COVID sell-off, so this was the COVID sell-off, and then when it was rallying, from time to time, it would come and touch the weekly 20 EMA, rally, pull back to weekly 20 EMA, rally, pull back to 20 EMA, rally, pull back to 20 EMA, rally, pull back to 20 EMA. How many times has it touched the 20 EMA? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times during this, during this rally. It has touched the weekly 20 EMA. So it has a history of touching the weekly 20 EMA. You might think of the 20 EMA as a mean reversion, like an equilibrium point. So so it does have a it does have a history of touching that, and in fact that pullback, I would say, is quite healthy. It keeps establishing a structure on a weekly basis. So if it were to pull back and touch this, does that break anything? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We've seen this happen a number of times. If that happens, and if you look at let me show you the RSI. If you look at right here, when there was a correction right here and it was touching, notice that weekly RSI never fell below the 50 level. See, every time, so let me just get rid of those ranges. Every time it was pulling back, right? RSI never broke below the weekly 50 level. The first time it fell below the weekly level right here when the bear market started in early 2022. But when in 2020 and 2021 QQQ was rallying, and from time to time it would pull back and touch the weekly 20, RSI never. So if it does do the same thing, if it does pull back and RSI never breaks below the weekly 50, I think this is constructive, this is positive. Now, what that basically means is that if you look at these periods on a daily basis, they would look weak on a daily basis. But that's okay. If you have a weakness on a daily time frame but no weakness on a weekly time frame, I would say that weakness is going to be temporary, and that price will recover as it has done so in 2020 and 2021. So that would be how I would see the difference between the weekly and the daily time frame. To me, weekly is more important than daily. So I would also look at the not just the daily but as well as the weekly. So where is the weekly 20 at the moment? The weekly 20 EMA is around 343. Okay, so if I go to the daily 20, Where is 343? So I'm just going to draw a line just to the daily. So it's around here. So it's around here. Let me just remove this line so you can see. So I've got those levels drawn out. So it's around here, right here. So on a on a daily basis now, you can see that the price is now just above the daily 20. So this would be an area of interest on a daily basis. So this is what number is that? That's around 372. Now, if this level is breached, the next area of interest would be this swing low. That's where the daily 50 is sitting there. Now, this is where the weekly 20 EMA is, this one right here. So I've got those levels, set out right here. The daily 20 is here, the daily 50 is right here, the weekly 20 is right here. So even if the price were to over time, fall to this level, right? So the price action on a daily basis is going to look weak. Why? Because you're going to have series of lower highs. You're going to see it below the daily 20, daily 50. RSI probably is going to fall below the 50 level. And you might say, oh, this is 2022 all over again, bear market 2.0. I would say hold it right there. Although the chart might look weak on a daily time frame, but if there is no weakness on a weekly time frame, I would say this weakness is going to be temporary. And you might see a lot of people putting this chart up in social media, in Twitter and YouTube, and saying, hey, this is crashing again. I would say don't pay attention. Look at the weekly. Do you see weakness on a weekly basis? Do you see a breakdown in the price structure? Do you see a breakdown in momentum on a weekly basis? Do you see weekly doing something like this on RSI, falling below the 50 level and remaining below the 50 level? If you do not, then this weakness would be temporary, in my view. So in terms of levels, those would be the levels. On the upside, the levels to keep an eye on would be, so obviously this one, 387. Once 387 gets taken out, I mean, there's not much until it goes to, the all-time high. Now, having said that, as I said, we've got more earnings coming out, FOMC, we could expect quite a bit of volatility, but look at the structure. Despite all of it, look at what's happening not just on a daily basis, but the structure. Is it falling below the moving averages? The weekly moving average, they're rising. They're doing something similar to C. Do you see the price below those? If not, then don't worry about it. The weekly will correct itself and price will recover. So that's QQQ. Let's look at SPY. So the thinking is along the same lines. So if I look at the the price structure on for SPY looks stronger to me than QQQ. QQQ only because of Tesla and Netflix. You can see that the price structure is quite constructive. Series of higher lows. The moving averages, the daily 20, 50 are rising. It is still well above the daily 20 EMA. The daily 20 EMA is around 445. So even if we have additional pullback, I would expect this area to provide support. So if I bring in my horizontal levels, you can see that this was the previous high. That's where the daily 20 EMA is sitting. If this level is breached, then the daily 50 and this previous swing low, those would be the two levels I'd be looking out for. They're around 431. The daily 50 is around 433. Between 433 and 431 would be the next set of And if there is weakness, look at RSI. Does the RSI dip below 50 and stay below 50? Like here, it fell below RSI 50 for a short period of time, but recovered. If it stays underneath the daily 50 for an extended period of time, then I would expect weakness. Now, what about on the upside? So, I'm talking about downside. What about on the upside? So on the upside, if let's say SPY takes out this previous high, which is around 56, the next target would be around 468. Where is this level? So why this level? That's because if you take this range and double it, you get that level. So what's so special about this level, right? If you go to the left, that level happens to be your all-time high. So so this level is pretty much this all-time high. So SPY has given us a clue. So the clue is that it has traded between this zone. So if it's able to break out this level, if you take this distance, a full measured move basically projects this level. So a breakout of this level is indicating that that's basically where it wants to go. Now we'll have to wait for the breakout, but that would be the level I would be looking for. If I look at on a weekly basis, again, just like QQQ, if you look at the price action, series of lower highs, maybe this is the last low, and then it hasn't, and then since then it's gone straight up. Can it pull back, consolidate before it's ready to tackle this level? Absolutely. So what would be some of the levels? Again, if it wants to have a deeper pullback, maybe the 20 EMA, because you can see that when it was rallying after COVID, it touched the weekly 20 EMA a number of times. So if it were to pull back and touch the weekly 20 EMA, does that affect the weekly structure at all? No, I don't think so. In fact, I would basically say that would be quite healthy. Where's the weekly 20 EMA at the moment? It's around 425. Now, if it pulls back to 425 on a daily basis, it would be somewhere around here. This is so let's have a look. So this is 440, this is 432. So it would be around here. And it might seem that, so it might seem that the daily chart is beginning to look weak, maybe, but the weekly, there won't be any violation to the weekly price action momentum indicators. So in that case, I would expect the weekly to recover, the weekly price action to recover, and the uptrend to resume. So watch those levels. The 20 EMA, the 50 EMA, these two levels. If it goes underneath this level, then we can talk about other levels. But at least for now, those would be the levels I'd be keeping an eye on. Overall, I'm not seeing any breakdown in either SPY and QQQ, but we've got lots of news coming out that could affect the market. So I'll leave it at that. Please consider subscribing, following me on my Twitter. The links would be in the description. Thank you very much for watching the video.